Hey everybody, welcome into Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And she forgot to mute her computer. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome into the big show. I love, right as you said your name, you got a text message.
I know.
Hey, we've got a busy show for you on this Wednesday. Glad everyone, hey, silence your cell phones as we dive into the news, because we've got something big in the... They don't have to. Because we've got something big in the works right ahead of this debate at the end of the month, the CNN debate between President Biden and President Trump. First of all, will RFK Jr. be allowed to be on the stage? That's a side story we're going to get to. But will President Biden even be there? Or will this be the catalyst needed for Democrats to justify him stepping down? A growing chorus of Democrats and insiders saying President Biden will not be on the ballot by Election Day. So what in the world is about to happen? We're going to dive into some of the new big pieces of this tonight.
Plus, the media is obsessed with themselves, saying that Trump is going to go after them if he is elected. So they're basically begging you to save them as the heroes of society because, you know, they're such truth tellers.
Right.
We're going to look at that. We're also going to look at a boycott of Israeli companies, the Israeli economy. It's interesting that this is happening when there was a BDS movement for this to happen. So it's kind of like what you resist persists.
What's BDS
right?
stand for?
Is the boycott, divest, and sanctions movement, which was a peaceful protest of Israel. We didn't get that. We got a violent one instead. We're
also going to talk about Canada tonight, maybe the biggest scandal in Trudeau's government's existence in his, 8-9 years in power since 2015. The spy scandal, it continues to grow, and the government there needs to provide answers to the Canadian people who in the parliament has been spying on behalf of foreign countries. What foreign countries? Who are these individuals? This is a massive story that needs to be covered. We're going to dive deep into that and so much more tonight on the show. Welcome in. It's free to subscribe to the show. If you're new here, please subscribe. How many of you are subscribers? What do you call it over on Rumble? I guess it's just to join, right? Or you can follow. Follow. Yeah, that's what they call it on Rumble. You can follow us for free, or on YouTube, you can subscribe for free. On X, I guess you can also follow us for free over there.
The more, the merrier.
Yeah, that's right. And if, by the way, if you do subscribe, then it'll pop up here on the big screen. Your name will pop up here. So good to see. Right underneath our national debt, which continues to explode. It's going up and up. Did you know they actually slowed down for a very brief day? Can you guess what day it slowed down?
Tax day.
Tax day.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of ground to a halt and then exploded again.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Like one of my favorite financial pundits, if you will, Carol Roth, talks about how we don't really have an intake problem. We have a spending problem because we normally take in what we expect per person. It's not a collection problem. It's not that we collectively, American taxpayers, are not doing our jobs. We are. We're doing our jobs. They just overspend our money.
Yeah. Well, the Biden economy right now, getting some good news on inflation. They're trying to spin it as good news. Bidenomics is working, but more Americans than ever are working double jobs right now. So I don't know how they want to spin it anymore. But anyway, we're going to talk about a lot more tonight on that. Well, get out your tin foil hat, folks. President Biden will step down in the next few weeks, making way for Democrats to replace him on the ticket before the November election. And it could happen a couple of different ways. These aren't my words. The chorus of Democrats calling for President Biden to step down is impossible now to ignore. And Democratic sources who don't want their names out there, of course, for fear of retribution, are quietly saying, yes, this is going to happen. Biden will step down. Why would he? He's mentally fit as a button. Yesterday, he was very clearly and articulately explaining how he was once professor at the University of Pennsylvania and claims he taught a constitutional law class on the Second Amendment.
Are so damn important. We need you. We need you to overcome the unrelenting opposition of the gun lobby, gun manufacturers, so many politicians when they oppose common sense gun legislation. I used to be when I was no longer the vice president, I became a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Before that, I taught a constitutional law class, and so I taught the Second Amendment. There's never been a time that says you can own anything you want. Never. You couldn't own a cannon during the Civil War.
Okay.
Of course, none of that's true at all. And Democrats who are...
Well, he did have an appointment at UPenn.
He thinks he's a professor.
He didn't. Yeah, he was not a professor.
And he never taught a constitutional law class.
No, I don't.
Could you imagine him teaching a constitutional law class?
20 years ago, perhaps.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. I'm going to show you that in a second here.
And what it would have said is war. That's what it would have said.
Here's how to
Constitution wants war.
Here's how to not have constitutional rights, and we'll take them away from you. Meanwhile, Democrats who are meeting with him privately are frankly stunned at his mental decline. And the dementia is on full display, and it's actually really uncomfortable and embarrassing. And this is what they're saying behind closed doors, that they're having these meetings and they don't even know who they're talking to. I mean, it's that disastrous. Peter Doocy asked Corinne Jean-Pierre about this a few weeks ago as to the report on the special counsel and how he's mentally basically not fit. He's not even mentally fit to hold office. Who's actually running the country? Watch.
If the special counsel says President Biden's got significant limitations on his memory, then who is helping him run the country?
The President of the United States runs the country. The Commander-in-Chief runs the country.
How can he be trusted with the nuclear codes if I get that you're saying that nobody in the building would say that he's got an issue with his memory, but just a little part of what we get to see, he's made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake on camera this week.
So I'm going to be very clear here.
I'm glad she's going to be clear now.
The reality is that report, that part of the report, does not live in reality. It just doesn't.
But
okay.
So that's just they just
my
made
reality is the reality that I'm telling you what your reality is.
Yeah.
I was believing her right up until she said, "Let me be clear here," and I was like, "Oh," because she hadn't said that yet.
Yeah.
She hadn't said, "Let me be clear." She didn't start with that, so I was like, "Oh, she's telling the truth." And then she did "Now let me be clear," and I'm like, "Oh, there it is."
There it is.
Well,
That's
what would be an
exposes
honest
that
answer?
She's making it up.
What would be yeah, we're screwed.
I mean, an honest answer. She can't tell the truth. This is the propaganda. She's the propagandist in chief, right, at the White House. So she gets out there with her binder of notes. Everyone sees it. Mm-hmm. He has dementia. It is full scale. Democrats who are meeting with him privately behind closed doors to go over policy decisions, et cetera, are coming out baffled and befuddled as to who they just spoke with. So it's a legitimate question. Who's running the country? So her response could be, yeah, I mean, when I started working for the president a number of years ago, we could already see that he was in decline. He's now fully mentally in decline. He's not fit for office. Peter, you're right.
It's not great.
What would he say to that?
But it's what we got, and it's got to be good enough.
Like, next question. If she answered like liar, liar, like Jim Carrey and liar, liar.
That would be amazing.
Can you imagine that moment? Like, she would have to respond and tell the truth. Next question. Yes, he is not fit for office. Okay, next question. Wait, what? You just said he's not fit for office? Yeah, but we got to move on. Next question. Those reporters wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah.
They're just regurgitating, of course, the propagandist talking points that come out of the propagandist's mouth. So Democrats
I guess the most honest answer she could give is I'd rather not answer that.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's perfectly honest.
Well, she has no choice. She has to, right? That's the job. But yeah,
her body language is all, how dare you?
How dare you ask that question?
Okay, you're going to ask the question. That's the most obvious. Would you rather it just be trending on Twitter, or how about we just talk about it?
So Democrats are now saying this will happen, that Biden will step down in the coming weeks. When exactly will this happen? That's up in the air. Here's Democratic pundit Ezra Klein basically reading the New York Times report on this on his show, admitting, this is what's going to happen. He is not an asset to the Democratic Party. Watch.
He is not up for this. He is not the campaigner he was even 5 years ago. A campaign has certain assets, but the most desirable asset is the candidate. And the Biden campaign does not treat Biden like he's a desirable asset. Step one, unfortunately, is convincing Biden that he should not run again. I think Biden, as painful as this is, should find his way to stepping down as a hero. That the party should help him find his way to that, to being the thing that he said he would be in 2020, the bridge to the next generation of Democrats.
Can you, first of all, he should step down as a hero. He should really take one for the team like Gerald Ford did in pardoning Richard Nixon and therefore assuring that he wouldn't be reelected because he just pardoned the criminal Nixon, right? So he should just take one for the team, right? He's going to be the bridge to the Democrats in the future. So he was just operating as a bridge. He was just there for 4 years. He's the savior. He's the hero we needed at this moment. And he steps in. So even JP Morgan Chase, chief strategist for JP Morgan Chase, biggest banks in the world, saying Joe Biden will drop out of the 2024 presidential race. And when you have major bankers who have the ear of Washington, Janet Yellen, Antony Blinken, all of these individuals, says that this is Michael Cembalest, who heads the marketing and investment strategy unit. He says that sometime between Super Tuesday, which was already passed, and the November election, he will drop out, citing health concerns.
I want to say, I do think that some sort of bleeding heart liberals would eat that shit up. Don't you think? Heroic, I'm not up for this, grandpa needs to sit down kind of speech. They'd love it.
Oh, and then they would let him go
tearful. Oh my God.
Stop picking on him.
He's collectively the nation's grandpa.
Yeah.
And we're setting him in his rocker. I can see this. I'm playing it out right now.
Like with some country time lemonade.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, what a hero. He's doing it for us all because he knows it's a death of a salesman moment. Oh my God. That's how you pull the heartstrings.
And of course, he goes out and he pardons Hunter Biden. I'm going to take care of
son.
I'm just going to take care of my family. I'm going to take care of my son. And you know what? Leave us alone. Leave the Biden crime family alone. Let us go to Shady Acres.
We got lots of money from China and Ukraine. We're going to be fine.
Let us go to Shady Acres and enjoy our sunsets.
This is the way. We've mapped it out for the Bidens.
So this is kind of a bombshell over the past 24 hours. So billionaire former presidential candidate Steve Forbes, who is very plugged into what's happening in Washington, just released a video saying that Biden will step down. And here's who likely will replace him. But first, he outlines how some in Washington are perhaps trying to use his mental decline as a bit of a head fake, trying to lure Trump in, overplaying his hand during the CNN debate, trying to use that as a cudgel, right? That maybe Trump will punch him too hard during the debate and, oh, you just hurt grandpa. God, the guy has dementia. How rude of you to attack a guy like this. Poor grandpa over here has dementia. So they think, and he thinks that that's what maybe part of the Democratic strategy will be. Listen to Steve Forbes here.
The continued, painfully obvious mental decline of our commander-in-chief has revived widespread public speculation of his withdrawing. A few observers think that this might be the political equivalent of a head fake, lowering expectations for his upcoming debate performance against Donald Trump. That highly anticipated verbal slugfest is barely 3 weeks away. After all, there are rumblings of pushing Biden out before his boffo State of the Union triumph. But the volume this time is more extensive and the tone more anxious. The fact that several Democrats, almost always off the record, are whispering concerns to the media reveals growing worries about this president's fitness to stay the course for this campaign. Hardly anyone believes he can navigate the rigors of a second term. This, of course, leads to basic questions. Will Biden bow out before the June 27 debate with Trump? Unlike his appearances these days, the president won't be aided by teleprompters. His unscripted remarks are routinely and embarrassingly confused and garbled. Would a combination of anger, which might fuel a temporary clarity of mind, extensive rehearsals, and some exotic elixirs enable Biden to complete a 90-minute debate, especially since the likely moderators would be on his side and former President Trump might overplay his hand? Perhaps this is what certain White House aides and the powerful, highly influential First Lady are counting on.
So maybe that's the head fake that we're talking about here. But I don't buy that. Steve Forbes isn't buying it either. But he says President Biden will step down, and this is who will likely replace him. Watch.
It's a high risk, however. A fumbling performance would make a subsequent pullout particularly humiliating. Even if Biden makes it through the June 27 challenge, his continuing decline in public and private meetings will fire up ever-deepening misgivings among voters, knowing a ballot cast for Biden would be a ballot cast for Kamala Harris, sooner rather than later for her to sit in the Oval Office. When Biden steps down, who would replace him and how? He would likely quit the campaign, but not the presidency. Harris would remain vice president. Fevered meetings would follow among Democrats as party leaders would try to orchestrate the anointment of a candidate the way they did in 2020 with Joe Biden to block frontrunner Bernie Sanders. The frontrunner here would be California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's never made secret his lust for the nation's top job. But Democrats may conclude his record makes him too vulnerable, and instead would go for an unknown candidate with a cleaner slate, particularly one of their governors, like Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, Wesley Moore of Maryland, or Jared Polis of Colorado. A big international financial or military crisis may force Biden out, as he does not have the mental agility to handle such a situation the way John Kennedy did during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kamala Harris may yet get to sit in the big chair. Either way, Joe Biden will not be the head of the Democratic ticket this November. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening.
Either way, Joe Biden will not be on the Democratic ticket in 2024. I've said it before, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. I don't think there's any chance in hell he's on the ticket in 2024. I mean, he is now, but I don't think there's any way he makes it through November. I don't see how it's possible. I don't, especially when you're up against debates. I mean, unless there's going to be some sort of a massive mail-in ballot campaign that they're going to try to pull off. The poll numbers are absolutely disastrous, and there's no enthusiasm whatsoever for them. I don't see how in the world they pulled, and the Democrats know this. Democrats know this. Democratic fundraisers know this. Democratic fundraisers who have been meeting with the president privately know this and are actively complaining about it. You have bankers now publicly talking about it. The Democrats want him out. Joe Rogan thought it was going to happen back in May, but that month has come and gone. So are we just weeks away from this happening?
May.
I think he's got until May.
No way.
I feel like right around May they're going to pull him.
No way.
Yeah.
And Newsom comes in.
I think he just has health problems, and then the country understands, and Newsom is going to have his support fully, and Kamala is going to I don't want to be president. I'm cool with being vice president.
So Kamala will sit sideways on this? I don't know. Newsom wants nothing more, of course, than to become president of the United States. And he's been saying all the right things in the past few months, praising Joe Biden like some kind of crazy sycophant playing the game, lining up the donors, running this campaign in secret. Watch.
Who in their mind would want to run when you have someone of such esteem as our incumbent president of the United States, with a record of accomplishments and a man of character, a man of decency? I'm old school. Talk about loyalty. I'll go to ends of the earth for this guy. I really would.
He's the company guy.
My God. And she puts her hands up with a pen over her mouth like, really? Give me a break. You're so full of shit. You are so slimy and full of... Oh, my God. He's
Joe Biden, the great Joe Biden.
My God, just bow down to him.
You don't go up against Napoleon.
Right.
Caesar himself.
A man of great esteem, Governor DeSantis laid it out, said Newsom is running a shadow campaign behind Biden's back. Of course he is, and it's all part of the plan.
Joe Biden is experienced what I believe to be significant cognitive decline. And in other words, it's the toughest job in the world. Is Joe Biden experiencing this cognitive decline? Is it a danger to the country? Do you find when he speaks, what is your reaction to it?
Yes, he's in decline. Yes, it's a danger to the country. He has no business running for president. And, you know, Gavin Newsom agrees with that. He won't say that. But that's why he's running his shadow campaign. He should not be running. He is not up to the job. And it is dangerous for this country.
Well, I will take Joe Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age. In fact, all of the folks.
You think he's up to the job? You think he's 100%?
I've been spending plenty of time with Joe Biden in private and public. You don't know.
He's 100%. I take Joe Biden at 100 years old over a Ron DeSantis? Really? Okay. Well, the Democratic media.
That gives me some pause about his judgment.
There's a lot of things in Gavin Newsom's judgment pile. I mean, look at the fleeing of California. Mass exodus from that state. So California has descended into absolute chaos. I mean, they're literally discussing reparations right now. A state that had no slavery. They're going to pay individuals in the state of California over slavery to people who aren't even relatives of slaves in a state where they had no slavery. This is the madness of California.
Oh,
right
I can
now.
go on all day about the madness of California.
No,
My
we don't
dad
have time.
is a
We don't
small
have
business owner, so
we don't have
yes.
we don't have 8 hours.
I was joking.
I know
I already had serious doubts about his judgment, but go ahead.
So Democratic media is preparing for Gavin Newsom in a big way. Watch Meet the Press as they tee it up for him, so Newsom can get up to bat and just hit a home run with these questions.
Before we play this, I have also noticed that Twitter is surfacing a lot of Gavin Newsom's tweets to me, and I'm like, what's going on here? Because I don't want to hear what you have to say about gun control, and I don't mark him as a high follower. I'm just watching. So I have noticed that there is some sort of political machine that is pushing him out in front of all of us more and more every day. I wonder if you feel that too. Sorry, let's go watch him on Meet the Press.
Do you think it's responsible for Democrats to put him at the top of the ticket, given those concerns?
Responsible. I revere his record. I mean, what he's done in 3 years has been a masterclass, close to 15 million jobs. That's 8 times more than the last 3 Republican presidents combined. The economy is booming. Inflation is cooling. It's 0.6% more than it was in the summer of 2020 at just 3.1%. Wait a second. We have American manufacturing coming back home, all because of Biden's wisdom, because of his temperance, his capacity to lead in a bipartisan manner, which is an underrepresented point. And so I have great confidence moving forward. So the answer is absolutely all in terms of the next 4 years.
He's excited.
He's really excited. And, of course, all the corporate media is pushing him out there. Meet the Press. You're seeing it all over the place right now. Even on the front page of the Babylon Bee, they nailed it with this headline. Biden calls for the president to step down. I love this. By the way, CNN is, side story on all of this. So, again, the argument is that Biden will step down maybe before the debate, maybe after the debate. It's part of their plan that they do not want RFK Jr. as part of the debate. The CNN rigging this debate, specifically working directly with Team Biden to outline the terms of the debate and whether or not there'll be teleprompters, whether or not there'll be earpieces, who else will be on the stage. Well, apparently CNN does not want RFK Jr. on the stage, even though he meets their threshold for the to get onto the debate stage. And he was asked about this, and he's furious. Watch.
Biden's campaign staffers, during their phone call with CNN, as reported by the Washington Post, said specifically that CNN needed to use criteria to determine who was going to be on the stage that would keep me off the stage, that he would not come to the debate as long as I was on the stage with him. And by the way, this is illegal. It's illegal under the Federal Elections Commission laws act. The act specifically says that the network can sponsor debates, but they need pre-existing criteria that are objective and neutral. CNN chose criteria that it thought would keep me off the stage. One of those criteria is that I have to be polling at 15 points or higher in at least 4 recent polls among 12 polling companies. The day after they published this criteria, we provided them with polls that fit their criteria. So and another poll came out that week CNN's own poll is among those, which shows me at, I think, 16%. And the other criteria is that the candidates need to be on the ballot in sufficient states to gain 270 electoral votes. The problem that CNN has is that neither President Trump or President Biden is on any state ballot. They both have expectations that they're going to win the Democratic and Republican nominations, respectively, but that's not guaranteed. So they're not on the ballot anywhere. I'm the only one that's on the ballot anywhere. What the FEC says is if CNN colludes with those campaigns to exclude me, it's an illegal campaign contribution.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
Sit there and think about this for a second. President
To which
Trump
campaign?
and President Biden are both not on the ballot yet in any state. RFK Jr. is. He's the only candidate that is. So therefore, under CNN's own guidelines, RFK Jr. should be the only one at the debate. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's wild.
And furthermore, wouldn't you want to have this other candidate up there on stage? But not if you're the Democrats, of course, because if you have Robert Kennedy up there as a, former Democrat, now independent, you're going to siphon off an enormous amount of votes for President Biden, of course. But if it's part of their plan to either make him look like this is his ailing moment, he just got destroyed by President Trump. Now he's got health issues. He's going to pull out of the race.
Right.
Having RFK Jr. in the room throws off that entire plan. I think it's awful. This just speaks to the fact that, we have this two-party uniparty, which controls everything in the United States, and they're bullies going after independent third-party candidates. Regardless of how you feel about RFK Jr., he has a huge amount of support, and he should absolutely be there on that stage.
Right.
And CNN should be ashamed of themselves, and this should be a federal election crime. But once again, the Bidens will get away with it, of course. But let us know what you're thinking on this. Do you think President Biden will be on the ballot, will be available and up for election by the fall of 2024? Or do you believe Steve Forbes and these other Democrats who are now coming forward saying, no, there's a shift about to happen? Gavin Newsom ready to step in? Or will it be Kamala Harris or one of those other choices that Steve Forbes put forward? Let us know in the comments below. We've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday.
We're going to talk about how the media is obsessed with themselves, warning that they will be arrested if Trump takes over the presidency. I have heard this one before, so I don't know why it would be any different, but we're going to watch them sort of fawn all over themselves and make fun of them, because that will be fun for all of us, I think.
Yes. Especially if there's Rachel Maddow in the mix. Yes.
Ooh, yeah. This one, I'm going to tell you, we're going to do this segment because I'm pissed about it. That's just like, it's feeding into the existing pissed off, and we're going to share that together. I can't hold it all inside of me. It's unhealthy. Good. I need you to share it with me. Also, we're going to talk about how the Israeli economy is tanking because companies internationally don't want to do business with Israel. This is exactly what the peaceful Palestinian protests had asked for within the last decade. Now we're getting it also with death. Maybe we should have listened to the peaceful protests to begin with. Huh? Also, we're going to talk about Trudeau's Canada.
Yeah, and the big spying scandal up in Canada right now that's not getting enough press. Would you do us a favor? Would you kindly smash that like button? Actually, when we're live here on YouTube and Rumble, when you actually hit the like button, it actually pushes us further out into the other thousands of individuals can come and join us. It's a funny trick that works with YouTube Live, so please do that so other people can stop watching CNN and Fox News and come on over here to watch our news. We'd really appreciate that. So just hit the like button, and that'll actually, while we're live, it actually pushes it out to more people. So thank you. We're independent, so we could use all the help we can get.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the media in a second. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Policy Genius, because this is a great way to find life insurance and actually any insurance policy that you're in the market for. Because, of course, you want to be a good, responsible adult and think about what happens to your family if something happens to you. Whether you're healthy or not, you know that life is unpredictable. And a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against any of those unknowns out there. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and it makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. In fact, Clayton and I used it for where we're moving our new studio to this place now. We needed insurance policy. We got it in 3 seconds flat. It was amazing. We got a really great, affordable rate. And also, we recently renewed our car insurance. Used Policy Genius for that as well, just to shop the marketplace to just make sure that we were getting the most affordable rate. And yeah, super easy.
I did it on
fast.
my iPhone.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Yeah.
So give them a try with Policy Genius. Again, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for up to $1 million in coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid the unnecessary medical exams because sometimes they want to authenticate that you're healthy in order to, make sure your policy is on the up and up. Clayton had to get a blood test for one once and he was crying like a baby. He doesn't like needles, but you can avoid that if you want with Policy Genius. So check them out. Head on over to policygenius.com right now and shop around for whatever policy you may want to either shop for or see if you can do better than at one of your existing policies. Again, that's policygenius.com. Well, corporate media are warning that they all may be imprisoned, you guys, if Donald Trump is reelected. They're telling us that they are scared. Now, not only...
Hold on, let me get some tissues out.
Okay, yeah. Not only are they playing the victim, they are sort of asking us to vote against Trump in order to save themselves because they are such heroic truth tellers, as in like, I'm really going to be at risk because I dare to tell the truth because of my commitment to truth, which rings very hollow to me because these are the same people who lied incessantly during the whole Trump administration about Russiagate. Nothing ever happened to them. They were allowed to just tell us all lies, promise us that Donald Trump was going to be arrested any day now during his presidency. Nothing ever happened except they lost trust and they lost ratings. So they lied and they got away with it. But now they're asking us to think that they're in trouble for all their truth telling. And I cannot abide that after being lied to about the Steele dossier, the COVID pandemic, the Hunter Biden laptop. They have been safe to tell all of those lies all along during the Trump years and the Biden years. So, they want us to now vote against Trump to protect them. But they're liars. So, okay. Watch MSNBC's White House correspondent Nicole Wallace saying that by this time next year, if Trump's elected, I might not even be here.
I've seen that toast a bunch of times, but it landed very differently this year because depending on what happens in November, 7 months from right now, this time next year, I might not be sitting here. There might not be a White House correspondents' dinner or a free press. While our democracy wouldn't exactly fall apart immediately without it, the real threat looms larger. A candidate with outward disdain, not just for a free press, but for all of our freedoms and for the rule of law itself.
My God, we're going to...
No, Nicole Wallace, what will we do?
She might not be on TV anymore.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
I don't know.
I hope she's the only one.
So they warned us about this.
I don't know who she is, so my life won't change.
Oh, okay. They warned us about this during the Trump campaign in 2016. And they said these exact things that, he's threatening to lock up his political opponents. That will include the media. You must be afraid that journalists will not be afraid to be allowed to tell the truth. And so when Trump was elected, I kind of bought that. And I was like, oh, I wonder, Clayton's been critical of Trump on Fox before. He was critical of some things that he did during the campaign. So does that mean us? Are we going to jail during the night of the election? I did wonder this too. That's a load of garbage that I was fed in 2016, and I'm not buying that again. Rachel Maddow and MSNBC, you already sold that to us and you were safe. And what did you do with that safety? You lied. You've been lying for 8 years. So screw off. Here is MSNBC's Rachel Maddow saying something similar in this CNN interview. The author feeds her this sort of lobbed question about having a target on her back if Trump regains power. And let's just read it. She says, he says, are you worried that you'd be a target? And she says, well, I'm worried about the country broadly, not just myself, clearly, because I'm so selfless. I'm worried if we put someone in power who is openly avowing that he plans to build camps to hold millions of people and to root out what he's described in subhuman terms as the enemy from within. Look at the Biden campaign. Just want to say that. Again, history here is helpful. He's not joking when he says this stuff. And we've seen what happens when people taking power proclaim that kind of agenda. And there's a little bit of head in the sand complacency that Trump only intends to go after individual people he's already singled out. Do you really think he plans to stop at well-known liberals? It also seems pretty clear in politics that they think they'll be on the safe side and they might even benefit from it if they side with Trump. But ask Mike Pence how that works out in the end. She says when Trump invokes the Insurrection Act to deploy the U.S. military against civilians on his first day in office, do you think that he then rescinds the order on the day or a day or two? For that matter, what convinces you that these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? So yes, I'm worried about me. I might go into a migrant camp. But also I'm worried about all of us. She said it's for all of us. She's really worried about. She says he's going to punish us all, put us in camps, label us as the enemy from within. Now, this must be a party-wide talking point because Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been echoing it as well. She was on the Kara Swisher podcast just last week, and she said, yeah, same thing. She got this question, what happens to you if Donald Trump wins? And she says, I mean, it sounds nuts, but I wouldn't be surprised if this guy threw me in jail. They're really obsessed with me. You know, it's really hard. She says, really? He's out of his mind. I mean, he did his whole first campaign around lock her up. That's his motto. She says sarcastically, he didn't say that. She goes, yeah, right. She goes, I take him at his word. I take him at his word when he says he's going to round people up. I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. I take him at his word. Okay. So that's what she's saying. And an important follow-up question would be, why didn't he the first time? Why? Why were you were just as obnoxious then. Why didn't you get rounded up for that? I'm just wondering. Is there some argument to make that Trump is somehow madder, more unhinged, has more of an axe to grind this time than last time? Now, I don't see that as part of the campaign, but if you do, let me know. Maybe I've missed it. They're just saying, again, he's just more scary than this time. And the first administration was no precedent.
They're out of strategies. I mean, clearly they're out of strategies. They're out of tactics.
Yeah.
So now they're playing on your fears that, oh my God, an AOC might be rounded up, might be prosecuted, they might use lawfare against her, or your media stars, your Rachel Maddow's, your Nicole Wallace's. I mean, I don't even know who these people are. Honestly, Nicole Wallace, other than seeing a clip or two of her from time to time, she was a former Bush person. I mean, who the hell cares about these people?
I've been in the makeup chair with her a few times.
Yeah. But our show gets, 10 times the viewers that her show gets on MSNBC. I mean, who the hell cares about these people? And do you think that Trump cares about some little MSNBC anchors?
They are standing themselves up as an important pillar of democracy. If a free press crumbles, our democracy will crumble around it. That's exactly what she said. If we have no free press, our democracy will take some time, but it will eventually crumble. And she is the free press,
the
ombudsman, right, of the people. She's rooting out the truth that we need her or else we're all doomed. She's literally saying if the rug's pulled out from under her, our entire society collapses if she can't be sitting there next year.
Is she aware at all at the level of collusion between the Biden administration and the intelligence state and the different government agencies that have gone after the free press in the United States?
I'm quite sure she's aware, but her job is dependent on her not this.
Okay, all right.
So she's not a stupid person, but isn't that
it's what is that phrase when you pretend you don't know?
Cognitive dissonance, but it's
cognitive dissonance. Yep.
There's a quote of is it Emerson? A man cannot know that which his salary is dependent on him not knowing. Something like that. There's a quote like that.
Like a Mark Twain quote or something like that.
Something like that. Okay. Well, again, I just wonder, who will fall for this now? These are the people who lied through their teeth about Hunter Biden's laptop, about the Steele dossier, the COVID pandemic. I could go on. And they lack curiosity now to look at things such as whether or not the Trump trial was constitutional. They lack curiosity about Ukraine, government influence, fast-track clinical trials. They lack curiosity about human trafficking at the southern border. They only report on what gives them dopamine and makes them feel superior. Now, I don't think that their freedom to lie is at threat. I think they can keep lying. I don't think the Trump campaign is after them per se, but again, you can show me where he's threatened them and I'll take it seriously. I think they are digging their own grave by being biased liars, and any non-Biden candidate should just leave them to it, because this is a tactic from Napoleon. Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. They're lying. They are tanking themselves. We can just leave them to it. Just leave them. We don't need to arrest them unless they break a law. We just leave them. And then they'll be talking to themselves on the air with nobody. And they're not even trying to regain our trust. That was painfully apparent last week when the Washington Post had a big management shakeup. And the new publisher admitted just how bad their readership is. Here in this it is the story about the shakeup at the Post and how now there's new leadership. He said this to his staff. He said at one point he had to tell the staff, "We are losing large amounts of money. Your audience has halved in recent years. People are not reading your stuff. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. So I've had to take decisive, urgent action that sets on a different path, sourcing talent that I've worked with that are the best of the best." So what are they going to do? Are they going to apologize because they've been lying? They've been leading us into war. They've been incurious about things that turned out to be not conspiracy theory. No, that's not what they're going to do. Here's what he says he wants to do. He says the most important thing, untapped audiences. That's what he wants. We lied to our old audience. They don't trust us. We can't get them back. So we need to find new people to lie to, basically. That's how he thinks that the media can save itself. It's just new blood. We lied ourselves out of our old audience, so let's find some new ones. And how did this...
wait until they run into Gen Z.
Yeah.
They are not the audience they think they're going to be. The young kids coming up are not going to toe the line for you. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
Also hilariously, do they honestly think that young people are buying newspapers?
No.
Subscribing to what young people do you know that subscribe to the Washington Post?
They don't mean young people. They just mean people that we've never reached before.
Oh, so there might be like a 60-year-old person out there.
Yeah.
Who's thinking for the first time.
Some demographic, maybe not age. I mean, that's one demographic is age. And Philip's right. That's a harder road to hoe. Road to hoe.
Uh-huh.
Road to row. I don't know.
Something about a hoe.
It's harder for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They need new hoes is basically what
they need new hoes. Maybe one demographic they have not yet tapped into.
That's what they should do. Hit the streets. Hit the streets and find some hoes.
For somebody like, kind of comical from somebody like Washington Post. It's not like they're a new publisher. They've been around long enough that anybody that would give a shit knows who they are.
Yeah.
So their readership is capped. The market is saturated. They've hit everybody they're going to hit. So the only new people they could be going after would be young people.
Yeah.
Because they're the only people that didn't grow up with it.
But they're not going to buy. Yeah, they're not going to buy it. Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, that's hilarious. Untapped audiences. So he's really begging, like, hey guys, let's go after untapped. He never said, let's just start telling the truth. Let's make them trust us again. Let's do better journalism. No, just let's find new people to lie to in the same vein. And how did this land in the newsroom? Absolutely on deaf ears. The staff was not concerned at all about righting their wrongs. They were upset because the new people in charge are white men. That's literally why they were upset. So here is one sort of response is everyone was pretty shocked by your email last night. The reporter suggested that the most cynical interpretation sort of feels like you chose two of your buddies to come in and help run the Post. And now we have 4 white men running 3 newsrooms. And this is contrary to your prior commitment to diversity. So yeah, the ship is going down. We're on a sinking ship, but diversity quotas.
Yeah, so
never mind the ship. If the ship goes down, we all drowned. So diversity won't matter at all. but it matters right now while we're failing.
Our product has totally tanked. No one's reading our newspapers. People aren't even buying it to line their bird cages with anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about diversity in our newsroom.
I can't see 4 white men at the helm of this. It's really bothering me. I'm not going to be able to do my best work as a reporter right now.
Debbie Bartkowiak says, "Hey, I'm 60 years old. I'm not mentally stunted enough to fall for their BS." Thank you, Debbie.
All right. So here's again what he's going on and on like we're dying here. We have to right the ship. We have to get our readership back. And again, it must have been really frustrating to him because then later in the meeting, here's what was reported. He's going on this like, please, we got to work. As far as diversity goes, it's not great, but we'll do better going forward. But we have to survive to go forward. Look at the second paragraph. Later in the meeting, another reporter asked whether any women or people of color were interviewed or seriously considered for these positions. I mean, talk about like read the room. Has diversity alone got us any better politicians or better journalists? That's, I guess, for us to collectively decide at this point. But it's hilarious just how tone deaf they are on the fact that they are losing the trust and the readership of the American people because they're idiots, but they're so worried about the wrong thing. But here's
I wonder if the captain of the Titanic, when it was going down, if anybody had asked him like, "Hey, did anybody consider like a woman or a person of color for your position?" He's like, "You realize this ship is sinking?" He's like, "No, we just curious, like trying to save the ship." Yeah, just curious.
Exactly that. So here's some more commentary on media bias that does not bode well. A Media Research Center analysis of ABC, CBS, and NBC's evening news coverage shows, shockingly, that the networks have been far less interested in the felony trial of Hunter Biden than they were of the felony trial of Donald Trump. You already knew this in your gut, but the findings show, and here's just a summary, just how many times Hunter Biden's felony was not mentioned, how many times they sort of kept off a lot of the finer points about his trial. And again, did they apologize for lying about the laptop? No, they did not. So I'm not hoping that any anchor gets put in a camp or a jail. Absolutely not, unless they violate a law. But, selling our soul to the corporate media devil is not enough for them to go to jail, obviously. But they have become like those millennial gym ladies that we talked about yesterday who are just like, everyone's obsessed with me. I don't know why. And we're not. You're obsessed with yourself. We might be if you were truth tellers. We don't want to prosecute you. We'd rather pretend you don't exist unless you decide to tell the truth. Let me know what you think of that.
All right, we got more news to get to
also,
here
like,
on your... Sorry?
Sorry, real quick, but they're still going to get their news directly from the White House to press anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, it's crocodile tears. Because it's not like if Trump being elected, they're going to shut that off and suddenly they're not going to get all of their news directly from the CIA. It's still coming from the same place.
Right. Yep.
Indeed. Suck. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. We're going to look at the Israeli economic boycott. All these companies are boycotting Israel, and the people are boycotting the Israeli companies. How is this working against their economy? Why is the mainstream media ignoring this story? We're going to cover it because the mainstream media ignores it. The corporate media, of course, continues to lie to you. We're also going to look at Canada and the massive spy scandal that's unfolding up there and why, again, the corporate media is ignoring the story. But spies inside the Canadian Parliament, yes, working for other governments. Which members of Parliament are carrying favor with foreign governments inside the Parliament? Why don't we have their names? Why don't we have the governments that are actually doing this? Why won't Trudeau answer to this? This is a major scandal. This could be the biggest scandal of Trudeau's entire leadership time in office. We'll look at that. But first,
I have a question about our sponsor. So I'm going to do the sponsor after this one. I'm not quite sure if this matches what we had planned. So I apologize for that. Can we just go straight to the...
I don't know what you're asking.
Okay. I'm just asking because what I have here is...
I see it.
Yeah. So we're going to hold off on the sponsor, actually, if that's okay. And you take a look at that while I talk about this next story, if you don't mind.
All right.
Okay. So companies around the world are boycotting Israel, and the media will not tell you about it. Well, some media will, and we will do that. Look at this article from Israeli media, Ynet, saying that the economic boycott of Israel is already here, according to a banker inside of the Israeli government. So let's read what they have to say. Speaking to Ynet, the banking executive observed that for now, Israeli-owned entities and companies are not transferring their funds abroad, though they are exercising extreme caution within their investments in Israeli firms. And globally, he says, we, Israeli business companies and owners, are becoming economically unwelcome, almost pariahs in some areas. Many companies are now at risk as international entities impose an informal boycott on Israeli companies and factories. This person says the government must immediately develop an emergency plan to rescue business entities from a situation that can become a genuine threat to the stability of the Israeli economy. In times of war, we need strategies not only to eliminate figures like Sinwar, though that is important, but also to protect and sustain some of Israel's major economic enterprises as well as small businesses. Now, the chairman of the Israeli Security Authority says that this actually has already been happening before the war in Gaza, but it's happening even more. He says even before the war, there was a decline in foreign investments in Israel, and the war has accelerated this trend. Foreign investors have withdrawn over 34 billion shekels from the Israeli stock market since the beginning of the war, 8 billion from equities, 14 billion from government bonds, 6 billion from short-term loans, and 5 billion from corporate bonds. And Israeli investors have borne much of this burden. So what's interesting about this is what is happening is exactly what U.S. politicians and the Israeli government together, because you know they're like this, tried to stop happening when they opposed the BDS. Now, this is proof of the law of attraction, that what you resist persists. The BDS, it stands for Boycott, Divest, and Sanctions, was a grassroots movement among companies not to do business with Israel because of the way that they were treating the Palestinians, were and have been. It was a response to the violence from the Second Intifada. Palestinian leaders realized they had a global reputation for violence and they needed nonviolent action to inspire action on their behalf. They wanted to show the world we are not a violent people, but look at our plight. And maybe if you boycott Israel, our plight will get better. Sounds pretty reasonable. They came up with the BDS. Only U.S. lawmakers think that it is their job to protect the Israeli people, the Israeli government, not us, the Americans. So they literally wrote legislation. They wrote a law saying that it is illegal to boycott Israel. Why can't you boycott Israel? Isn't that your right? Do you have to like Israel? Is that a constitutional mandate? Here it is, the Combating BDS Act of 2019. This never became law, but in many ways, the anti-Semitism bill is this bill in sheep's clothing. And now, what did the Palestinians who promoted the BDS, what were their grievances that they wanted to get your attention about? Well, this comes from Mark Lamont Hill and Mitchell Platnick's book, Except for Palestine. Here's a simple list of what BDS wanted. Their grievances. This is not what they want. This is what they don't want. Is Israel's construction of the wall in the West Bank, continued expansion of Jewish-only settlements in the West Bank, unilateral annexation of East Jerusalem and Golan Heights, growing global refugee problem, Palestinian refugee problem, and Israel's discrimination against its own Arab, largely Palestinian citizens. These are things that they wanted your attention about. This is a list of grievances. Pretty stinking reasonable, right? And at first, the Zionist government ignored the BDS, and the media did too. But the media only covered violent Palestinian resistance, not nonviolent, of course, because as we established in the previous segment, they suck, until it started to gain traction. And then the media started to call it anti-Semitic. And then they went to lawmakers, not the media, but Israeli advocates, and asked to stop it in its tracks. Maybe you remember this. Ben and Jerry's joined the BDS movement, and lawmakers went after them like Elon Musk. Their parent company, Unilever, sold them because of this. Then Airbnb said they didn't want to list homes in the occupied West Bank, but they reversed that decision after they sued. Now, again, I know I'm always talking about against stakeholder capitalism. And this is definitely an example of businesses doing politics, which generally I'm against, but I am for their right to do it. I don't think that the government should tell them that they cannot express themselves and express a desire to not do business with Israel. They should have a right to do that. And in fact, that is what the courts decided in the end. They decided you cannot tell a company not to boycott Israel because that is a First Amendment right. This movement, though, is alive and well, although the name is a little bit less popular. People don't really throw around BDS as they once did. Although I would be happy to do that. That's why I'm doing it right now, because I'd rather talk about peaceful protests rather than the violent protests that we got on October 7th. Absolutely. Just this week, Apple employees and shareholders issued an open letter urging the company to please stop matching employee donations to organizations connected to the Israel military action in Gaza and illegal settlements in the West Bank. This letter calls for an immediate investigation and the cessation of matching donations to organizations that support illegal settlements and the IDF right now, which is killing civilians. So will lawmakers get involved in that too and say you can't ask Apple to stop that? Apple's going to keep doing that. Say that shareholders maybe can't stop a donation. Will they do something like that, given how in the pocket they are for Israel? Which again leads to the question, why? Why do our lawmakers do such bidding for Israel? Why is that? Well, one obvious reason is something that we were told about just last week. I don't know if you caught this, but I'd like to highlight this content. Representative Thomas Massie on Tucker Carlson said this about how every Republican representative has an Israeli representative babysitter.
They're not registered.
Is there any other Republican who has your views on this?
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. It's the only country that does this.
I've said that, I tweeted this the other day, Thomas Massie is a national treasure.
Yeah.
And we should protect him at all costs. All of these other people have an AIPAC guy that they're in the tank for. They receive money from these guys, and they're handed money from these guys, and they're told what to do. They're told what to say.
Yeah.
They're told how to vote.
So he later points out how these Zionist government representatives don't always have even the people of Israel or people who are Jewish. They don't have their best interest at heart. They want war with Iran. Most Israelis do not want that, or nobody rational would want a war with Iran. But again, if what you resist persists, my most pessimistic assessment of this is that the U.S. and Zionist governments work to shut down a peaceful protest. And what did they get? A violent one on October 7th. And the Israeli economy will hurt anyway because they resisted BDS, because they continue to attack civilians, and Gaza is an unpopular war throughout the world. My next pessimistic assessment is also this, that the failing U.S. economy, the U.S. government, will be called upon, because in that screen that I showed you, when that banker said the Israeli government has to save us, has to do something about our failing businesses because of this war, I'm afraid that they'll ask the U.S. government to do that. We don't have it. You see the debt clock behind me. We can't afford it. We should absolutely be using our money to benefit the American people. But I think that maybe the American people will be asked to bail out the Israeli economy because these lawmakers with babysitters might make us. So again, that's pessimistic, but I'm just saying that was where my mind went. So let me know what you think of that.
We got more news to come up on the show tonight. We're going to be talking about Canada and Trudeau's government up there and the massive spying scandal that needs to be addressed. We're going to talk about that on the show. We'd love to hear from you guys, so stick around for that. This is a huge story, and I don't know why the mainstream media is ignoring this story, but it's very, very big. Actually, I do have a few ideas as to why the media is ignoring it. Also, Trudeau has now said that, you know what, when countries are dealing with far-right extremism, what he likes to do is just roll up his sleeves and deal with it and talk to these individuals, have conversations with these individuals.
That pissed me off on Twitter this week.
So
one of many things.
We're going to talk about that on the show. But first, it's no secret. If you just saw our segment where we just talked about the liberal media, I mean, it absolutely is the case that media bias and fake news are persistent, but mainstream media has a massive liberal bias. They cover stories that fit within a liberal narrative, and they ignore important issues. Traditional media can't be trusted. The media establishment is out of touch with what matters to ordinary people and focused on their own agenda. So, like, where's a good website that you can go to get great news that will give you multiple sources on news and not gather related articles from around the world in one place, so you can compare the coverage all in one place without the corporate influence? That's our friends over at Ground News. So all you need to do, you can search for one thing, put in, want to look up like RFK, or want to study the Russia-Ukraine war or the 2024 elections, and it'll search for you and provide you context with great article coverage right there. And you might find upwards of like 10, 12 articles. When I was searching for, I did an RFK search earlier and found a whole ton of articles from all different sources that are able to pull this information in so you can make an informed decision and you can start to see through the mainstream media narratives that they're trying to push on you. It's actually pretty remarkable, especially when you get all these international perspectives. They'll block, a lot of countries will block RT News and Sputnik News and these other sources. And so you have to use like a VPN to go around them and all this stuff. It's crazy. So try them right now. Go to ground.news/redacted to get 40% off of unlimited access, and see the QR code that's right there on your screen. You can just hold up your phone and do that. Right now, go to ground.news/redacted. That's ground.news/redacted. And if you subscribe through our link, you'll get 40% off with unlimited access. So our thanks to Ground News for supporting independent media like us. And I love that they reached out to us, because I think that this is really important. That's what we do on a daily basis, is use Ground News to be able to pull in all of these different sources and be able to collate and find out what the narrative the mainstream media is trying to force down your throat. So check them out, ground.news/redacted. Well, is Justin Trudeau about to be swallowed up by the giant conservative right-wing extremist wave that just rolled through Europe? Is Trudeau next? Is he out of a job? Well, the polls seem to suggest that. But yesterday, Trudeau spoke about this right-wing extremism, the right-wing wave. And how does he normally handle these types of interactions with people that raise concerns about the government, say like the trucker convoy? Well, Trudeau had a response. Listen.
We have seen around the world a rise of populist right-wing forces in just about every democracy that we've seen. And it is of concern to see political parties choosing to instrumentalize anger, fear, division, anxiety. My approach has always been to respond to it, to understand it, and to look to solve it.
So Trudeau likes to get together with these individuals and have a conversation with these individuals. Okay, we'll talk about that. Plus, one of the major stories coming out of Canada that really no one's talking about, but it keeps coming up during the question period in Parliament. Why won't you unmask the individuals who are basically spying on Canada with inside the government? Why can't we learn their names? Who are these individuals? We're going to get to the bottom of that story and more. David Creighton joins us from Ottawa, Canada. He's an independent journalist who writes at the Post Millennial, and he's working on this new story right now as we speak. David, great to see you.
Nice to be back, Clayton.
So let's take first we'll get to the spying piece in a second, which is utterly fascinating, but let's talk about what Trudeau just had to say about the right-wing wave that's just swept across, Spain, Poland, Germany, Austria. The list is fairly endless at this point. Is he next? Is he concerned about it?
He's always concerned about it. It's funny, when I first saw this news conference and this comment, I saw it out of context, and I said, oh, there he goes again, because Trudeau says this all the time, not just in the wake of EU elections. He says this all the time, that he's always out there fighting against these right-wing populist forces. And he's not the one creating division. It's these right-wing populist forces that are creating division. He said it again. And of course, all you have to do is look at this man's record and who's the one who's creating division and who's the one who's down in the polls so far. He hasn't got a hope or a prayer of winning another election. It's Justin Trudeau. He reacts to a trucker convoy protest. He reacts to free speech and freedom of assembly by calling out the police and having people incarcerated or having heads crushed by police forces. How does he respond to parents who say, I don't want my children to be there for the raising of the pride flag, or I don't want my children to be indoctrinated into gender ideology? He says the parents are domestic terrorists. He says the parents are the problem. So this is the guy who's constantly creating division in our society. He's putting Canadian against Canadian. He wants Muslims to be against Christians, to be against Jews. He wants everybody fighting, so he comes out on top. But what's happening actually is what Justin Trudeau fears the most, is that his political opponents are all uniting because they have much more in common than they ever thought. And one of those things they have in common is a real detestation of Justin Trudeau's policies, especially when it comes to religion and the family and traditional values. So yes, Justin Trudeau is very concerned because what's happening in Europe is that these so-called far-right parties are coming together. And what makes them far-right, I ask you, Clayton? They're anti-war in Ukraine. I thought far-right parties were supposed to be militaristic and in favor of war. But these are parties in Europe that are saying, end the war in Ukraine, stop spending billions, stop killing Ukrainians, stop killing Russians, let's end the war, and let's stop mass immigration because it's changing Europe beyond any recognition. That doesn't make people far-right. That makes them commonsensical. It does make them populist, but populism is democracy. And this is what Justin Trudeau never understands. Populism is not a force contrary to democracy. Populism is democracy. And Justin Trudeau fears democracy. He really, really does. He's an elitist. He's a globalist. He's certainly not anybody who can understand populism or even democracy. He'll never get democracy.
Right, the people's voice. And also, there was a big green backlash throughout Europe as well. One of the big undercurrents of what happened just in Europe is the green parties got crushed. So all of this sort of climate alarmism, climate change policies, and, let's shut down our nuclear power plants, let's shut down our coal plants, let's shut down all of this. So now we're paying twice for electricity, we're paying twice for our energy. There was a huge backlash against that. I could imagine the same thing would also be happening in Canada as well. You've seen a lot of Trudeau's green policies kind of go up in smoke, and they're continuing to drive a wedge in Canadian politics.
Well, Trudeau was the keynote speaker, as he is every year, at this annual convention of Canadian mayors and reeves. So it's quite influential. These are people from across Canada. They come out every year. This year they're in Montreal. Trudeau was the keynote speaker, and he took some questions from the crowd. And they were hostile questions. People saying, we don't We don't believe you want to ever balance the budget. You don't even think it's possible. But the questions about climate change were really interesting. People were just fed up. Mayors across the country were fed up with hearing about how the carbon tax is going to save the world from climate change. And when he repeated his talking points that he does every day he's in question period, but 8 out of 10 Canadians get more back from the carbon rebate, he was ridiculed, heckled. People were laughing at him. And these are people that he's usually a friendly audience because he goes there every year expecting lots of applause and affirmation. He got neither this year. And of course, he looked so uncomfortable. He's making these grimaces. He's giving the thumbs up and the crowd is booing. So it's not a good look for Trudeau. And clearly people are fed up with being told that you can't drive your car, you can't heat your home. And by the way, if you lose your job on the oil rig, which a lot of people in Alberta are going to be losing their jobs on the oil rigs if he strangles fossil fuel in this country, there's always a job as a janitor. And it's funny, an internal memo from the Trudeau government indicated exactly that about 6 months ago. All of these people are going to lose their high-paying jobs in the oil rigs. Well, there's always a janitorial position for them, or perhaps they can make some solar panels. But oops, we forgot. China already has a monopoly on that, so there's really no other recourse.
It's unbelievable. Another story is about this spying scandal. You know, the United States right now has a bit of a scandal on its hands. The revelation that almost every member of Congress has basically an Israeli lobby babysitter, according to Congressman Thomas Massie, sort of an APEC babysitter as part of the lobbying that they have to go through. Thomas Massie and a handful of other members of Congress do not. So sort of foreign influence, really, in the United States, but Canada dealing with something perhaps even far worse. According to this new federal government report, which just came out, and it was a nonpartisan report that you've been writing about, it describes how these elected officials in Canada are wittingly, not unwittingly, but wittingly controlled by foreign states, and then are expected to engage in espionage, spying, on behalf of these host nations, these foreign nations, favors from these host nations. I mean, this sounds like an absolute bombshell. Do we know what these host nations are? Do we know the names of these politicians yet? I mean, this sounds to me the biggest story in all of Canada right now.
It is certainly in question period. It's what everybody's leading off with. And there has been some media coverage of it. Interestingly enough, the chairman of this intelligence group is a Liberal member of Parliament from Ottawa South. So this certainly is a non-partisan or a multi-partisan intelligence group. Now, what happened is that they put this report together and they gave Trudeau the unredacted copy. So Trudeau knows this is about 11 weeks ago. He got the copy. He knows who these members of Parliament are who are spying. And I'm not going to put it in any looser, lighter terms. They're spying for foreign powers. And who are these foreign powers? Well, the report says it's largely China, but they've also named India, Pakistan, and Russia. But they say it's overwhelmingly China because China is also, of course, the motor of this election interference that's been going on at the same time. The report makes it quite clear. Doesn't name any names obviously in the redacted report, but it does suggest there are possibly, from subsequent reports we've had, up to 11 or 12 members of Parliament who are in the pockets of a foreign government, probably China. Now, I would argue that these are government MPs, because if you're a foreign power looking for somebody with influence, you're probably going to tap into the government side. Possibly even cabinet ministers. And this, of course, is a concern. Do we have treasonous people in the House of Commons, potentially in the cabinet of the federal government? We need to know these names. And the Trudeau government keeps saying, we can't tell you, it would be a violation of the National Securities Act. We can't say, if we did so, we'd be arrested. And the legal opinion on that is divided, because there are those who say if it's in the public interest to know, and certainly this is in the public interest to know, that it's not going to be a violation of the National Securities Act, and the public has a right to know who these people are who are taking favors, accepting favors from foreign governments, and obviously doing something in return. And this is a real concern.
Do we know what they're doing in return yet? Have we gotten any instances of this? Has any of this leaked out?
There's been nothing in terms of what the favors have been. Was it in the unredacted version of the report? Probably. I've read the redacted version. It's very comprehensive, except it's heavily censored. I mean, there are huge portions are just gone, saying that this portion was redacted in accordance with the National Security Act, so you can't see it. But what comes to mind here, Clinton, is that what this dovetails perfectly into the election interference controversy in this country about China helping to elect largely liberal MPs in return for these MPs doing something for them. And it also dovetails into the story about our biolab, our top secret biolab in Winnipeg, where 2 Chinese scientists were working for 2 years, and they were conducting espionage on behalf of the Chinese secret police. Why did they stay for 2 years? Or is our security that bad in this country that they didn't know what to do about it? Was there a quid pro quo for these Chinese scientists? Was that quid pro quo help in the general election that Trudeau won following the dismissal of these 2 Chinese scientists? This is raising huge questions about the credibility of the Trudeau government, about the sovereignty of Canada, and about the ability of the Trudeau government to conduct itself in a reasonable and democratic fashion without being beholden to foreign interests. This is a basic question for any democracy. Is it in the pocket of foreign interests? And when you have a report saying, yeah, we've got a bunch of MPs doing this, the uproar is increasing. And I think you'll see a cacophony of voices saying we need to know who these people are because it is foundational to what Canada is as a democracy. I don't think there would be any question if this same thing happened in the House of Representatives in the United States. If there were potentially, a dozen congressmen or congresswomen working for China, would there be obfuscation from the government, even from the speaker? I think there would be an incredible public uproar and demand for answers. So I hope we see more of that here.
Yeah, I agree. All right, David Creighton, great to see you as always. We'll keep our eye on this story. This is developing in Canada, and we'll see how much of the mainstreaming corporate media actually covered this story. David, as always, great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Always nice to be. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. A crazy, crazy story. We'll continue to watch it. Thanks, David. All right. Yeah, we want to tell you about some stuff that we got cooking up here in the books on Redacted coming up here shortly. But first,
we want to tell you about American financing, because in today's climate, many of us find ourselves facing the challenge of managing our monthly expenses. And high credit card interest rates can trap you into a debt cycle with balances that persist month after month. Feels like a black hole. Paying only the minimum each month can take you years to ever become debt-free. But reach out if you want to American Financing, because they are a trusted partner in helping people achieve financial freedom. They can teach you to find equity in the assets you have, so you trade out high interest debt for more favorable debt. This is what wealthy people do all the time as they look for their unfavorable financial products. Get rid of them and find better ones. If you're a homeowner, you can tap into your home's equity, and this can help you eliminate high interest credit card debt, student loan debt, whatever it is you've got. On average, their customers save $854 per month. That's like getting a $10,000 per year raise. The process is straightforward and quick, and they walk you through it. You can close your loan in as little as 10 days. And by acting today, you may not even have to pay your mortgage payment next month, so that will also free up some cash. It costs nothing, and it can help you. So try to set aside some time. Say, okay, we're going to learn this. We're going to see if this will work for our family. We're going to act like wealthy people. This is what they do. They learn to optimize their finances and trade out their liabilities. So that's what you're going to try to do. So get that monkey off your back. Call them at 866-890-8434 or go to americanfinancing.net/redacted.
So coming up here on Redacted in the next few weeks, we got a lot of things that we're cooking on here. First of all, we're working on our new studio. And so there's going to be a period at the end of July, or at the end of June into early July over the July 4th holiday. We're going to try to do this like during the holiday when most people are off anyway and building the new studio. So we're not going to have any live shows for about 8 days or so. We hope that that's all that it will be. So that last week in June, first week in July, and then we will have our new studio, our temporary new studio that we're building right now, will be unfolding. But we're also planning on mid-July, of course, the Republican National Convention coverage. And so we're working on that right now as well. Hopefully Redacted will be able to be there on the ground at the Republican National Convention, bringing you some great stories, great interviews, and that will be exciting. So there's a lot of things happening over the next few weeks. So guys, thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our community here at Redacted. We really appreciate it. One way that we can stay connected with you through that entire time is with our newsletter. We have a daily newsletter that we publish, and we try to bring you a ton of value. It's not just a waste of time. We try to bring you up to speed every morning over your cup of coffee with some of the best stories of the day that you might not have seen, that the mainstream media will not cover. So all you need to do to get the free newsletter is just go to redacted.inc, put in your email address, and you'll receive a welcome email. You must confirm it. So there's a link that we'll send you. You have to confirm it. This is like a two-factor version so that they know that we're not spamming you and you're not spamming them. So just go to redacted.inc to sign up, get the newsletter. You'll receive it tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, in your inbox. Around 7:30, 8 a.m. Eastern time is when we publish the newsletter. So again, redacted.inc.
All right, we'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.